Recently, there's been a lot of controversy about the use of puberty blockers in trans children and adolescents.
Is this guy saying that hormone blockers can be turned off and then you could go through a normal puberty? You're out of your fucking mind.
People who promote these practices like Adam Ruins Everything, they are without a doubt the worst kinds of people.
Because I don't want it to alter my hormones. By the way, I'm going to chop off my balls and do puberty blockers at 8.
And I'm here to say that there really isn't much evidence supporting these positions. So let's drill down into puberty blockers. They are used to treat many conditions, including gender dysphoria, in a treatment called puberty suppression. Puberty blockers are drugs which are properly known as gonadotropin-releasing hormone agonists. That means they block this thing called gonadotropin-releasing hormone. Gonadotropin-releasing hormone, or GRH as I'll call it from now on, is a hormone released from a part of the brain called the hypothalamus, and it tells the body to start making androgens, like testosterone and DHT, and estrogens, like estradiol and estrone. So normally, what happens in childhood is the body spends time building up resources and growing, and eventually it reaches a point where all these signals align to tell the body to develop into a sexual being, and that's when GRH starts being released like crazy. Before this point, the only major sexual characteristics of children is their genitals and reproductive organs, the primary sexual characteristics. Once GRH is released in large amounts, the resulting hormones allow the sexual organs to become functional, and secondary sexual characteristics develop, like breasts, Adam's apple, muscle distribution, fat distribution, etc. This big release of GRH to start puberty can happen at wildly different times in people's lives. It's natural for humans to go through puberty as early as 10 or as late as 15 or even 16. The key insight is that late puberty usually isn't harmful to a child's development. Children who go through puberty later still usually grow to a normal height, have normal bone density, normal brain and psychological development, and normal social development. In fact, going through puberty later seems to correlate with some benefits, especially for girls. So this is why, in the 1980s, people started using puberty blockers to treat various conditions related to sex hormones, and these drugs were established as safe back then, even for the purpose of suppressing puberty, because some people have to block puberty for medical reasons. So even before widespread study of trans people and gender dysphoria, puberty suppression was established as a safe treatment to avoid negative outcomes, with very few effects on sexual development in the long term. Let's not forget, for drugs to be available on the market, they have to go through more than a decade of testing, and drugs that affect the development of children are scrutinized particularly rigorously.
Pushing your kid into becoming trans is one thing, but then moving forward to give your toddler hormone treatments and even maybe a sexual reassignment surgery? That's super messed up.
Okay, I have to address this. No one is saying children should go through surgery. Nobody does this. No serious person advocates for this. That's just fear-mongering. What people advocate for is suppressing puberty in children who are showing signs of gender dysphoria. We want to stop them developing irreversible sexual characteristics before they are ready to give informed consent for actual cross-sex hormone therapy. Remember, cross-sex hormone therapy and puberty suppression therapy are very different.
But why? Why suppress puberty?
Okay, so some trans people have a psychological condition called gender dysphoria. This is considered a real psychological problem. It's in the DSM, that big book of psychological disorders. That's because we define psychological disorders as any psychological condition that causes a person distress. Being trans does not inherently cause distress to an individual, but having gender dysphoria does. Distress about your body and gender expression is a real problem. Treating gender dysphoria is important because it often leads to more serious problems such as depression, anxiety, suicide, eating disorders, and social isolation. Trans people that go through puberty naturally often have much worse gender dysphoria because they get even further from their desired gender expression. And one of the best ways to prevent this problem is to suppress puberty in suspected trans children until they can give informed consent for cross-sex hormones. A child could never give consent for something irreversible, like cross-sex hormone therapy or surgery. However, puberty suppression is considered safe and reversible, so children can consent to it. That's why we delay puberty. And then, when the child is old enough to consent to more serious therapies, we can switch to cross-sex hormone therapy if they desire. Otherwise, we can stop suppressing puberty and reverse the effects. And this is very well studied, and the findings are corroborated across medicine, pharmacology, psychology, anthropology, and sociology. If you think this is wrong, then you might as well be doubting all modern medicine. This is what annoys me about people like Joe Rogan. He will get people on the podcast to talk about all the latest biomedical research and nutrition science, and he just nods along. But as soon as it's trans issues, he chooses to ignore the scientific consensus. Unless you are an expert in this particular field, you can't cherry pick what findings to agree with. You either have to agree with all scientific consensus or none. Otherwise, you're a hypocrite.
But I heard trans people who transition are still depressed.
Yeah, transitioning has a whole lot of downsides, including being stigmatized way more. But still, almost all the studies I can find show less depression after transitioning. In many studies, this is very significant, like a 4-fold decrease in depression. And recent studies are showing that as trans people become more accepted, the outcomes from transitioning are getting better.
But what if they change their mind?
Trans children treated with puberty suppression have much better mental health outcomes, and the treatment has been proven safe many times. And even in the cases where children choose not to transition, which is rare, the effects are reversible. They still go through sexual development normally, and also have good mental health outcomes. I found studies suggesting that allowing these people space to explore their gender identity is associated with better mental health outcomes, even if they don't ultimately transition. So I'm sorry, if you're against trans kids using puberty suppression, the scientific consensus is not on your side. Actually, to be honest, when I started researching this, I thought the research would be way more contentious. I was actually shocked by the level of consensus among experts on these topics. I just wish more people out there could see it, because these treatments are saving lives. If you have a child that is suffering from gender dysphoria and you're concerned, don't be. There are medical professionals who specialize in this stuff, and they will be able to help you and your child figure out the right course of action. Don't be afraid of the first-line treatments, because they are proven to be very safe. It's really important that you help your child on their journey, because it could mean the difference between life and death down the line. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hit like to suppress my puberty, and subscribe for more content in the future. I'll leave you all with this montage of my research on puberty suppression.
If heaven doesn't take us, we try. But you know, I think if we stick together, maybe we'll become each other's guide. I know we'll make it out of this one alive. And we'll be alright. Revolution lover. And we'll be alright. Revolution lover. I know we both could have almost died. I know it's harder every day to provide, but it's gonna change, I can feel it coming. be sad.